We're going to finish part 2 of the 7 emotion and TCM treatment. Today we're going to look at worry, overthinking, sadness and grief, and of course fear and shock. I hope you enjoy it as much as I love to teach it. Same format, same TCM geek, same matching color. Enjoy. All right, so worry, overthinking is obviously something that women are very good at doing. And constant overthinking doesn't mean we worry all the time, right? Those can be separated. People that worry, obviously, they overthink, but overthinkers not necessarily worry all the time. It is also for you if you're a student. If we study or we all going to school for a long time in this profession, I went 5 years, you may have gone 3, 4, or 5 years as well. So overstudying, which means overthinking really, because we're using our brain function a lot. Or for people that have a job that requires a lot of mental activity. So not someone that, let's say, is in construction or hairdresser, but someone that is going to be more a lawyer or someone that needs to think a lot in their job. That can really affect our health. So the cause of issues when worry and overthinking is overdone or over a long period of time is definitely overworked, or for students, overstudied, because when you're a student, this is what you do, this is your job, and you are overworked every single time. Diet can be a cause as well, specifically a lot of sugar can make a difference in how our mind is acting. Emotional stress, of course, if we've had a lot of stress emotionally or emotional trauma in the past. Too much exercise and too little exercise can make us worry or overthink. And that's because it's affecting the spleen, which is in charge of muscle. So if we work out too much, usually we become obsessive, and worry, overthinking is pretty much an obsessive thing for a lot of people. Or too little exercise, and then we are going to overthink because we have a lot of time on our hands. Treatment option when it comes to ear acupuncture, get back to your Shenmen. That's the best point for anything calming the mind. And of course, with the worry, overthinking, spleen is important. Heart, because it's the center of all of our emotions, and then liver, because sometimes we overthink or worry because of stress, right? So that works quite well. So let's look at the worry, overthinking TCM pattern. The first one, obviously, spleen is going to be involved. So is liver over-controlling spleen in the 5-element sequence, which means really that it's liver qi stagnation with a spleen qi deficiency that was created by too much qi stagnation, which obviously the cause often is stress. So the person that's overwhelmed, stressed out, very worried all the time, preoccupied, moody, kind of moody as in can cry very easily or get irritable easily. And then, of course, poor appetite. And poor appetite doesn't mean not hungry. It can mean cravings, wanting to eat at completely irregular hours. That's also that kind of poor appetite. Loose stool, of course, because spleen is deficient. People that worry, overthink can have some issues with the digestion, so IBS, or maybe, anything that's going to be a lot of bloating, sensitivity to wheat and dairy is going to come up as well. PMS, of course, breast tenderness, bloating again, probably fatigue and more moody during the week prior to menstruation. So, of course, we need to move liver qi and tonify spleen. The best formula for that is always Shayao-san, which is called often the rambling powder or the easy and free wanderer. It's a really, really good formula, and we use it for many disorders when the pattern is liver over-controlling or overacting on spleen. So point-wise, we open the gate to move the liver qi with Li4 and liver 3. Liver 14 is also the front move point of the liver, so we are going to do that to really soothe the liver. And then liver 13 is the front move point of the spleen. But because it's a liver point, it's a great point when there's liver overacting on spleen. It kind of treats both, so that's great that way. Spleen 6 and stomach 36, great to strengthen qi in general, specifically spleen qi and stomach qi and the digestive system when it comes to stomach and spleen, right? The second pattern is heart and spleen qi and blood deficiency. So the person is definitely going to be worry, overthinking, same idea, but very obsessive thinking, right? Cannot stop. It is actually really making the person so anxious that they probably get palpitation, they could get into panic attack, very fatigued because this is draining to think all the time and obsess about something all the time. Usually that could be caused by trauma, emotional trauma. Often that was done in the past to this person or an event that affected that person. The person cannot fall asleep. So when someone is Qi and blood deficient, specifically heart and spleen Qi and blood deficient, it is a person that's going to take hours to fall asleep because they are overthinking, right? So they cannot fall asleep easily. Loose stools, that's your Qi deficiency, pale face, poor appetite, same as above. So tongue, obviously pale because it's a Qi and blood deficiency with teeth mark due to the overthinking, and the spleen Qi deficiency, very weak pulse. Person is going to need some tonifying and some nourishing, right? As well as we need to calm the mind because that becomes a problem. Gui Pi Tong, love this formula. Perfect. Pi means spleen, so it's kind of nourishing spleen formula, but it also has great herbs in there to calm the mind and nourish the heart and blood as well. Point-wise, definitely one of my favorite points, specifically when there's a lot of overthinking leading to anxiety, is Ren 17. Ren 17 is going to open the chest and be fantastic. I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute. And then, of course, stomach 36, spleen 6, obviously, again, to tonify spleen. Ren 15, again, for the heart, definitely on the chest area. And then liver 13, again, because it's a front move point of the spleen. And then heart 7, because it's going to help with sleeping. Talking about Ren 17 and having worry, overthinking, leading to anxiety with this patterns, particularly the heart and spleen Qi and blood deficiency. I had a patient whom I treated, came 3 times in a row because she is so anxious. She didn't tell me why, but she said, you know, there's a lot of baggage in the past and she cannot get over it. And she's constantly overthinking, cannot sleep, gets anxious, and she has major chest pain. Like she feels like it's always really painful right in the chest where Ren 17 is. What's interesting is, of course, you know, she went and did all the tests, the EKG, everything. Obviously, her heart is fine. Physically, she's fine. It's all mental. So I did treatment on her 3 times. I did obviously apply Ren 17 because it's one of my favorite points. And I did yin tong on her as well. So, and ear shenmen, just to sidebar here. So she went home after the 3rd treatment and went to bed. Woke up at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. Remember that the time of the long related to sadness and grief, stay with me, the long is from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. and it's related to sadness and grief. Well, the mother of long in the 5 element is spleen. Spleen and stomach or earth generates metal, right? Generates long and large intestine. At 4 a.m., she woke up and started sobbing, just could not stop crying. She cried and cried and cried. Her husband was asking her what's going on. She couldn't talk. She said, I don't know. I just can't stop sobbing. She sobbed all day, so she had to call in work. She canceled work, couldn't stop crying all day. Went back to bed that night, fell asleep, luckily, because I think she was exhausted. Woke up the next morning at large intestine time, in the morning, just about 6:30, she said, and then she started sobbing again, and she sobbed the whole day. At the end of that second day, she went to bed, woke up the next morning, and the chest pain was gone. It had been there for years. This is an amazing story. I loved it. So when she came to see me and she's telling me the story, I'm thinking, is she going to get mad at me because she cried a lot? She was delighted. She was so happy. She said, acupuncture saved me. That chest pain that's been there for years is gone. I feel lighter. I feel like I can deal with what's been plaguing me for many years, and I'm going to really deal with it head on. So I still see her. She comes on a regular basis about every 4 to 6 weeks just to keep things stable. And she is such a different person. So I wanted to say that's why I love my job, because it changes people's life. And that's why you love yours. And that's why you're in this profession. So Ren 17, rock on. Let's continue. All right. So let's look at sadness and grief, which was, you know, the next or son of the mother, which is worry and overthinking. So for that patient of mine, that was an interesting story I wanted to share. When it comes to sadness and grief, obviously the definition is to cry a lot, sometimes for no reason. Sometimes we have a reason, obviously, if we need to grieve, but sometimes we don't. And people will say that to me, I'm crying all the time, I don't know why. So that's not good, because that means we're getting into depression probably. Or if someone is grieving, but they just cannot pass, like for a long period, it's been 10 years and they're still grieving and they can't pass it, right? Where it's very difficult. The causes of sadness and grief, of course, is emotional trauma, right? Someone died close to you, someone got hurt close to you, or maybe you got hurt, and you have to grieve your event or whatever happened to you, right? Chronic illness, of course, that's very, very common, because it's very difficult when we have a chronic illness, and specifically when there's no hope, or no hope was given to the patient at the time. And of course, stress. A lot of stress and overwhelming, worry, overthinking eventually could lead and generate some depression, some sadness as well. Treatment option, we stick to the ear with this time. Shenmen is calming. We can't calm this person. We need to elevate them, because they're usually very fatigued. So we're going to do, of course, the long point, but also liver and heart, right? Liver because of the stress, and then heart because, of course, it is the emotional organ in TCM. So let's look at the frequent sadness or sorrow and what the patterns are in TCM. Lung and heart Qi deficiency. So this person, and remember that the lung and heart are located at the upper jaw. So often if one is affected, the other one will be as well, because they're together part of the upper jaw. So that person cries a lot. Probably not necessarily they know why. They may just be very weepy all the time. Palpitation, they get anxiety, so definitely they get palpitation and they get anxious. Very fatigued, because crying really drains your energy, so they can get short of breath. Coughing, not always, but sometimes. If you have someone that's had a chronic cough for months, and they're not coughing phlegm, they're not coughing anything, and it's a weak cough, look at the emotional component that could be the cause behind it. Sinusitis, because the lungs are not functioning properly, so there could be some residue of dampness in here. And of course, the immune system is low, so the person's always sick, which doesn't help anything. Sweating easily during the day, that's a heart Qi deficiency. Remember, heart is in charge of sweat and controls sweat. So if there's a Qi deficiency of heart, then we might sweat easily when we get anxious or nervous. And so that would come up often for those people. So obviously we're going to tonify both organ, and a formula that's really good for that is Gan Mai Da Zao Tong. And Gan Mai Da Zao Tong has Gan Cao as the main herb. Gan Cao is licorice. It has Fu Sha Mai, which is the second herb, and that's part of the wheat family. So you have to be careful if you know that the person is celiac or has some wheat sensitivity for that formula. And then Da Zao is red date. And those are the three herbs in that formula. It's not a lot, right? But it works really well when people's emotions are really all over the place, anxious and crying and just don't know why. So that's a really good formula. And that can happen around menopause for some women as well. So for points, a back treatment doing back shu is a good idea. Back shu of the lung, bladder 13, back shu of the pericardium, because it's the cover of the heart, bladder 14, and back shu of the heart, bladder 15. You can do lung 7 as well. That would be a good idea. We don't need a lot of points. This really will help the person get back on track. The second one, and that's a tougher one. This is more coming from the 5-element theory, and it's the liver insulting back the lung. So that's the insulting sequence. That's the third sequence, the one that really pushes back from the controlling sequence. So when liver insults the lung, that means someone is very stressed. They are maybe emotionally stressed, so they have a lot of stress, like overwhelming, the over busy, maybe they have to deal with a lot and they have a lot on their plates. So the person's going to be very irritable, right? Because they have kind of like liver qi stagnation, almost really liver yang rising, right? They have the volcano going. They're bursting with irritability. Oh my goodness. Anger. And once they're so angry, they just cry, right? That happens to kids a lot. Kids can do that, right? They get really angry and they like scream and then suddenly they start crying. So that's very common with someone that's very stressed. They're going to have liver symptoms such as sighing a lot, PMS, specifically breast tenderness and bloating and being irritable and moody at that time. The lung is going to be more shortness of breath and the crying. So we're not going to see a lot of lung symptoms in general. So we are going to really address the cause, and the root cause of the crying is the liver problem, the liver qi stagnation really becoming liver yang rising. So we will use that really, really common formula for liver yang rising, danger, Shai Yao San, right? So that's really the easy and free and easy wanderer, Shai Yao San, plus 2 herb, which is Mudangpi and Judzi, which are the 2 cooling herb to bring down the liver yang. When it comes to points, we are going to open the gate, obviously, Li4, liver 3, and then bring the liver yang down with liver 2. Lung 7 to tonify the lung and keep it from crying. Lung 7 is a great point when there's a lot of crying. So that's something to think about that we should always do if someone cries a lot. And then Yin Tong to bring the mind down and de-stress the person. And of course, you can do your ear point as well. Next is fear and fright, which obviously can be rational or irrational, right? We can have rational fear or irrational fear. It doesn't matter. It's still fear. Phobia, so that becomes really tougher if people have really major phobia, like they can't, they got to wash their hands all the time. It becomes obsessive. So that's someone that's going to be worry, overthinking, and then become obsessive and fearful of germ and have to wash their hands all the time. Then those, we're going to look at kidney, of course, but don't forget that spleen and stomach is involved because the worry, the overthinking when there's obsessive compulsive disorder is part of it as well. Paranoia, of course, if the fear is really, really bad, we can start thinking that someone is after us or something, someone is trying to kill us or whatnot. And then, of course, panic attack. And that's when fear or kidney, which is a water element, over control fire and creates panic attack for the heart. So causes of fear, alcohol can create some mind irrational thoughts. That's, if we drink a lot, obviously. Drugs, big time. We can start getting paranoia with some drugs. Medication as well can create phobia, fear, paranoia, and panic attack for some people, depending on what kind of medication. Chronic illness, of course, because we are fearful to have to deal with, hospital. We have to deal with maybe possible death. So this is obviously very difficult time for people, and fear is going to set in. Overworked, yep, that's very common, specifically if we are overwhelmed, right? So again, that comes from spleen and stomach, over controlling the kidney. And then post-traumatic stress. When people come back from war, they've been, serving in the military, and they come back and they've seen horrible, things happen in the war zone. They come back and it's very difficult for them to be back to a normal life. So they will have a lot of fear, a lot of paranoia, and it's very, very traumatic. So when it comes to treatment option, and again, acupuncture is amazing. It's an amazing tool when it comes to emotions. So use the ear point, specifically gallbladder, because paranoia often is related to phlegm in the gallbladder. That could be the next stage, right? Because water is the mother of wood in the 5 elements. So kidney fear can lead to paranoia, which can create phlegm, invisible phlegm in the gallbladder. And then, of course, kidney, because that's the organ that's affected, and heart, because, of course, as always, it's the emotional organ that gets affected by all emotions. So let's look at fear, and the first one that we can look at for patterns. Phlegm fire. So phlegm fire with fear, it is completely a heart issue, but again, that is due to the kidney over controlling and leading to some issue for the heart. So the phlegm is invisible phlegm, it's mind clouded mind, foggy head, not quite properly thinking. So the fear can be rational or irrational. And of course, there's going to be fire, meaning that the person is going to feel really warm most of the time, very hot, with a bitter taste in the mouth. Insomnia, they won't sleep at all, or if they sleep, they will have nightmares. Palpitation because the heart is affected, dizziness and vertigo because gallbladder is affected. This is phlegm in the gallbladder with heart fire. Really, that's what the whole pattern is. So the tongue is going to be, of course, red with a yellow greasy coat and a slippery rapid pulse. So we need to clear the phlegm from the gallbladder and drain the heart fire and, of course, calm the mind. Huan Yan, Wen Dan Tang, we have used this one previously when we talked about overexcitement or being aggressive. And so that's the formula, if you recall, I used on my dog when he was a teenager and he was a little poo-poo head and he was very aggressive. So this one is really good to calm the mind. It's very cold, so we can't use it too long, but it'll be really good so the person can sleep and hopefully the fear can calm down, right? So for point, of course, we're going to clear the fire with stomach 44, large intestine 11, gallbladder 41, very good for clearing heat and phlegm in the gallbladder. Stomach 40, best point for phlegm, one of my favorite points, as I said many times. Ren 17, to just open the chest and let go of the fear. And then our heart 7 and PC8, of course, to kind of calm the mind and address the heart issue. And PC8, also clears the fire from the heart. So that's good. The next one is liver qi stagnation and blood deficiency. So this is really a liver blood deficiency as well as a liver qi stagnation. This is really a liver pattern, which affects the heart because, of course, liver is the mother of the heart, right? So word generates fire. So the person's going to be very much easily startled, very nervous, right? They're jumpy, very jumpy. Irritable, of course, they're restless. They always have the leg shaking, moving like those people that sit down and their leg is shaking, and they can't stop. They don't even know it's doing it or they're doing it, right? Liver qi stagnation signs, so of course, rib pain, moodiness, but the blood deficiency, specifically liver blood deficiency, is going to affect the memory. And then we're going to have tendency to more dizziness, blurred vision, floaters, spots. That's going to show you that the person, of course, is blood deficient, and pale nail, pale face as well. And of course, pale tongue. So we're going to have to move liver qi and nourish the blood to calm the mind. Sewutong. Sewutong is a great formula. It only has 4 herbs because se means 4 ingredient formula. And it basically is a great formula to nourish liver and heart blood as well as move liver qi. So that's a perfect formula for this, and it will help so the person is calmer and not as startled and not as jumpy. So when it comes to point, definitely open the gate, right? Li4, liver 3, liver 14 again, because it is the front move point of the liver. And then we'll do also pericardium 6. It's good to do that when there is some blood deficiency because it's a good point to help nourish blood. And of course, stomach 36 and spleen 6. Great point to nourish blood in general. You can add up liver 8, specifically for liver, but this combination is probably a great combination, and that should work. Obviously, ear point, you can add up yin tong if you want to. There's always the fun mind point to add in the end. So let's continue. Yeah, we got more pattern when it comes to fear. The next one is heart and gallbladder qi deficiency. So this person usually is more someone that's very shy, very self-doubt. So I had a lot of self-doubt, low self-esteem, definitely. They really cannot trust their decision. They cannot trust who they are. They do not have good self-esteem. So that's why they cannot make decision. And that's a gallbladder issue when people just cannot make decision because they are fearful of the outcome, right? So they're like, well, what about if I do this and this happened? And what about, oh my God, that would be so scary. So that's the problem here. And the person is also easily startled. So they're very jumpy, very shy, very paranoid as well. If is that bad, they can be and starting to get paranoid. Not everybody in that situation will be, but that is a common symptom as well. So, of course, we're going to have some rib pain, and that's due to the gallbladder, not the liver. Palpitation, the plum pit syndrome, that's a gallbladder issue, because if gallbladder is not properly working, phlegm may be setting, and we may have that really lump in the throat, or the plum pit syndrome. And of course, lots of nightmares and lots of dream disturbed sleep. And again, that's a gallbladder issue. Nightmares is always gallbladder. Often gallbladder, sorry, I shouldn't say always. So for treatment, of course, we're going to have to tonify both organs and get rid of a bit of the phlegm that's starting to settle in the gallbladder. So Sure Way Wendanton is going to be a great formula. Sure means 10, so it's 10 ingredients. And Wendanton is actually a major formula, and we add up some ingredients to tonify heart and gallbladder qi, but it's also a great formula to clear phlegm in the gallbladder as well. So that'll work quite well. Point-wise, we are still going to do liver 14 because it's a great point for the rib, and even though it's a liver point, it will help the gallbladder because they always work together. Gallbladder 35 is an amazing point to stop the paranoia, and you can add up stomach 40 with it if you wanted to, if you think there is a lot. If there isn't, it's no big deal. Bladder 15 and bladder 19, those are the back shoe points. So if you want to do back shoe point, you can do that of the heart and gallbladder. Do 24 is a great point as well for this. And heart 7, of course, so we can sleep better. The last pattern is a liver blood deficiency with a kidney yin deficiency. So it's interesting because a lot of people think that, because there is fear, it's always a kidney issue, but it's not always. Kidney can be the outcome. What's the main culprit? It could be the mother. It could be controlled by worry, overthinking. It could be anxiety, which is the heart, over insulting, pushing back on the kidney, right? So it could be definitely other organ, not necessarily kidney. Kidney would be the outcome, but maybe not the root of the problem. So with this one, finally, kidney is involved with a yin deficiency and a liver blood deficiency. So the person's definitely going to have insomnia. And this is the kind of insomnia where we toss and turn. We wake up around liver time at 3 a.m. and we have a hard time sleeping, very light sleepers. Dizziness, that's due to the blood deficiency. Pale face, pale nails, that's the blood deficiency as well. We're going to have poor memory, blurred vision again, maybe some spots and floaters. That's also a liver blood deficiency. The person is fearful all the time. It could be rational or irrational. So the kidney sign here, of course, the person's going to have issue with low back aching all the time. Definitely night sweat due to the yin deficiency. 5 center heat, meaning palms, soles, and center of the chest, that's going to be the yin deficiency. So we're going to nourish the liver blood and nourish the kidney yin. Of course, we have to calm the mind. A great formula for that is Swan Zarantong. Swan Zarantong has herbs in there that are really good to tonify liver blood specifically. Not much to tonify kidney yin, a little bit, but not that much. It's a great formula to calm the mind. And it's a great formula when insomnia, when we're not sleeping well at all and we keep waking up at that liver time and we have blood deficiency. Great formula for that. So point-wise, you could do a back shoe point and do a back treatment and do back shoe point of the heart and, of course, the liver. And you could do bladder 17 because there's a blood deficiency. You could also do back shoe point of the kidney, which is bladder 23, which I haven't mentioned there, but you can add it up. And then, of course, heart 6, great point when there's yin deficiency. Kidney 3 and spleen 6 to tonify again the yin deficiency and the kidney. That's it. We did it. I went a bit over time because, me, I always have stories, but I hope you enjoyed it. We've done the 7 emotion. This is fantastic. I wanted to thank you for staying all the way to the end. And remember, if you love it, share it, because the more of us using TCM in this world, the better we can